half a century now, researchers in various kinds of situations, mostly psychologists, communication professionals, sometimes marketing professors in business schools, have been studying how you can say something in one particular way that will significantly increase the likelihood of assent to that thing, and have been checking their theories and their hypotheses in scientific experiments that allow us lessons that we can provide to the larger community beyond the scientific establishment of how you can be more effective and how you can be confident that you will be more effective, because it's grounded in true science, not just hunches and speculations of people who want to talk to you about this process. What I'm going to claim about the principles that we talk about is that they are universals of influence. They're so central to the human condition, so fundamental to the way we work as citizens of modern society, that you will be able to use them successfully, or they can be used successfully, in all kinds of domains, with your friends, with your neighbors, with your co-workers, with your boss, even with that most resistant of all audiences, your children. I'll guarantee that these principles are so fundamental, they're so psychologically central, that they strum strings that are inside all of us and that we try to resonate with in order to behave correctly. We can begin by talking about the book Influence, which resulted from my 2.5-year program of research into the training programs of all of the different influence professions to see what they do to get us to say yes. I was surprised by one thing that I encountered in all of these programs. There were only 6 universal principles. Now, there were hundreds, maybe thousands of individual tactics, but only 6 universal principles of influence that seem to capture the great majority of what all of these individuals were doing. Reciprocity, the desire of all of us to give back to someone who has given to us. So if an individual gives us something, a free sample, for example, we feel obligated to at least listen to what they have to say. At the supermarket, for example, that little lady with the cubes of cheese and meat, after you've eaten one of those, it's very hard to just give her back the toothpick. Right? You feel like you're obligated to buy. Reciprocity is one. Another is scarcity, the desire to have those things you can have less of. So things that are scarce, rare, dwindling in availability. So one of the things that many organizations will do is to inform us of how rare, how uncommon their features are. Another principle is commitment and consistency, the desire to be consistent with what we've already said or done, to be congruent with our internal values and what we've said that we're going to do. So, for example, one study showed that if you call people on the phone, registered voters, and ask them if they will vote in the upcoming election, they of course say yes. And they now vote significantly more often than if they didn't receive that phone call, getting them to commit to that sort of thing. Another principle is consensus, or what we call social proof, the idea that people want to follow the lead of similar others, people just like them. We've done a study, for example, in hotels. I don't know how much you travel, but when I do, in 70% of the hotels where I stay, there's a little laminated card asking me to reuse my towels and linen. Right? We put different kinds of cards in rooms to see what we could say on the card that would most increase the likelihood that people would say yes. What hotels typically say is, do this for the environment, do this for future generations, or cooperate with us toward this common cause. We added a different sign based on the principle of consensus, that people want to do what everybody else is doing. It said the majority of guests who stay at our hotel do recycle their towels at least once. That was absolutely true, and it increased compliance by 28%. We don't need to go to the internet if we're marketers of information. I saw this study from Beijing, shows you the cross-cultural reach of this. If a restaurant owner wants to significantly increase the percent of people who choose an item from the menu, right? A simple thing they can do. They put an asterisk next to those items that says, one of our most popular items, one of our most popular dishes, and each one immediately becomes 13 to 20% more popular.
Wow.
For pointing to something.
Yeah.
We all have most popular models. We have.
Did you hear that? Did you?
Most
Everyone.
popular options. If we don't bring it to consciousness, nobody is going to be moved in the direction of a good choice.
Right.
Before they even process the information associated with it. I'd like to introduce you to the principle of authority. This principle states that people want to follow the lead of genuine authorities, experts on a topic. This is especially the case when people are uncertain of what best to do in a situation. And when people are uncertain, they don't look inside themselves for answers. All they see there is the confusion and uncertainty. So they look outside of themselves. And one primary place they look is to the opinions of knowledgeable experts. How can this be used at your office? Well, when an inquiry comes into your office, instead of simply transferring the call to the appropriate agent, have the person answering the phone briefly credentialize the person they are transferring to. For instance, I'm going to have you speak with Jamie. Jamie has been with us for 20 years and knows everything there is to know about financial services. You couldn't be in better hands. Is this likely to work? Well, there's some good evidence from a study that was done in a London realty office where the receptionist was trained to connect call-in prospects to the realtor who was most experienced in the type of real estate the prospect was interested in. Her mistake was failing to mention the realtor's expert credentials first. But when she was taught to do so, I'm going to connect you to Clive. He's our expert in residential properties in Knightsbridge, that sort of thing. The conversion rate rose by 16%. So it seems like it's worth a try. The liking principle states that people prefer to say yes to those they like. Now, there's no surprise there, but research also tells us there are two small things you can do to increase how much people like you. First, you can point out similarities with them. Second, you can give genuine compliments. How can you use this? If you have a difficult client or a speaker that you're working with, spend some time on the internet to find something about them that you have in common with them. Then, work it into the conversation. Say something like, you play tennis? Or, you're a runner? Or, you're from the Midwest? So am I. That's how you can get true similarity to work for you. Well, I wrote Influence and described 6 universal principles of influence. If you include one or another of those principles into a communication, you significantly increase the likelihood that people will say yes to you.
Right.
So there's reciprocity, there's liking, there's authority, there's scarcity, there's commitment and consistency, and then there's social proof. Here's what state important determinants people yes to a request. If one of those is a message, spurs the likelihood of yes.